Yes, hello. My name is David, and I am making a video about how to make a fair matchmaker for World of Tanks. Now, I'd like to start by stating that I'm a computer programmer. I'm 47 years old. I've been doing computer programming since I had my first computer when I was 12 years old. I have a lot of experience doing computer programming. And one thing that computer programmers do is write algorithms. And there's two algorithms that eventually get written for any problem. One is the simple, obvious solution, and the other one is the more complicated yet best working solution. Most programmers are going to be able to come up with both algorithms. If you get a group of programmers together and you independently ask them to come up with algorithms, they're all going to come up with the same simple solution, which is easy to implement and the obvious solution, and they're all going to, and if you ask them to come up with the best solution, they're all going to come up with the same algorithm for the best solution. They might program it differently, but they're ultimately going to come up with the same methodology. Usually, if you take all the algorithms to solve a problem, there's one that's easiest to implement and obvious, and there's one that solves the problem better than all the others. It's rare that you have two algorithms that compete with each other to solve the problem. Usually there's one that's better than all the rest, and that's just it. This is in regards to matchmaking for World of Tanks, and this is what I believe is the best algorithm, and it's the fairest. The important thing is that it's a fair algorithm. There's two ways to implement it. It's up to the developers to decide how they want to do it. I'm going to do it the simple way in my explanation. Now, first I'm going to talk about the existing algorithm and why it's bad. The existing algorithm is called the template system. It is a bad matchmaker, and there's a few different reasons why. Number one, you have something called a 3-5-7 matchmaker. What happens is the tanks that are highest tier will seal club all the other tanks. When I am 3-5-7 matchmaker and I'm the highest tier, I rush around as quickly as I can, killing as many of the weaker tanks as I can, because 95% of the tanks are weaker than me, and that's the way I play my strategy. And there's lots of videos on my YouTube channel where I show how I do it. And you usually only have to worry on a 3-5-7 about one of the other enemy tanks. A heavy tank that's well armored is usually what you have to worry about, because they'll often have a weaker tank and an SPG that are in the top tier. You don't have to worry about those. So the 3-5-7 is a failed matchmaking system template. The other problem with the current system is that it's based on tiers, and within a tier you can have one tank that's similar to another but substantially better than another. For example, you could have two tanks that are the IS-3, one that has the stock gun and the stock turret and the stock engine, and the other one that has the best engine, the best gun, the best turret, well-equipped, good crew, etc. So the tier alone is not enough to decide whether or not one tank should be matched against another. The other reason why is because you have some tanks that are really good for their tier, well enough that they could be in a higher tier, such as the Scorpion G and the Defender. These are tanks that are so good for their tier that they're at the top of the tier, and they're better than some of the tanks that are a tier higher than them. So the template system or tier-based matchmaking is a failed system, and it should not be used. Instead, we should have a system that is based on characteristics of the tank, such as penetration, armor, speed, spotting, camouflage, damage, or other characteristics. It's up to the developers to choose which characteristics they use. There's two ways to implement it. One is you put all the tanks together with the exception of SPGs. For example, the T110E3, the T110E4, and the T110E5 are very similar tanks. They're somewhat interchangeable, even though one might be a tank destroyer and another might be a heavy tank. Or you separate them by class. You have heavy tanks, medium tanks, light tanks, etc. And you pick 3 heavy tanks and 3 medium tanks and 2 light tanks and 2 SPGs and 4 tank destroyers. You could do it that way. Now, in order for my system to work, you have to have the characteristics for each tank. For example, these are all fake numbers. I just made them up because I didn't want to put the time in to looking up the real numbers. So you have the tank, the T110E5, and it's got a penetration, armor, speed, and spotting. It might have the highest penetration in the game, but that doesn't mean it has the best armor or the highest speed or the best spotting. So by having one value such as penetration that's an advantage, it might have another that's a disadvantage. For example, if you compare the Scorpion G and the Type 5 Heavy, a Scorpion G could probably easily defeat a Type 5 Heavy one-on-one. So you take all the characteristics and you give them a rank. And you rank them from 1 being the best to, let's say, 500 being the worst, which if there were 500 tanks. And if there's a tie, you give them both the same rank. You rank them for penetration, you rank them from armor, you rank them for speed, you rank them for spotting, etc. So we're not going to do the matchmaker based on the actual penetration value. We're going to do it based on the rank, how it ranks in the game. So by doing this, we can come up with a scoring system. If the T110E5 has rank 2 for penetration, rank 2 for armor, rank 5 for speed, and rank 5 for spotting, I can total them together to give them a score of 15. Well, actually, that's not the total. It would be 14. The reason why it's different is because I changed some of the numbers by hand. So you total these numbers together and you come up with a score. And then you sort all of the tanks based on their score, and what you're going to get at the top is the best equipped tank. And being the best equipped doesn't mean it's the best for one characteristic. When you take all the characteristics into account, it will be the best equipped. And at the bottom of the list will be the worst equipped tank. So as you can see based on the characteristics I made, the Scorpion G outperforms a Type 5 Heavy, and I think most people would agree one-on-one a Scorpion G would easily defeat a Type 5 Heavy because it has a better camo value, it has better speed, it has better spotting, etc. It has, even though it's a tier 8 tank, it could easily defeat higher tier tanks that are slow and easy to spot. So that's why you want to use a scoring system as opposed to a tier-based ranking. So what you're going to do is you're going to rank each tank. You're going to assign it points, and the points will be the score by totaling all the values that you're going to include in your scoring system. You could add more, you could take away. If you add more, it will be more accurate. I chose 4 for my example. Then what you're going to do is you're going to sort them based on their score. So the best performing tanks are up at the top, the worst performing tanks are at the bottom. Then you're going to assign them to teams. The first tank will be Team A, the next tank will be Team B. You don't do Team A, B, A, B, A, B. You do A, B, B, A, B, B, A, B, B, A, and you keep repeating that. Because each group is a pair of 2, and you don't want the best of each pair to be on one team and the worst of each pair to be on another team. So that's why we're doing it A, B, B, A, B, B, A, etc. Team A is going to have a slight advantage, but it's irrelevant. It's going to be negligible. The other thing you can do is you can add a feature to limit the number of similar tanks on the same team. For example, if you only want to have 2 Type 5 Heavies per team, you can put a limit of 2 of each tank or a limit of 3 of each tank, etc. And the last thing you could do, like I said, mine is the simple way. You could do this by class. For example, you could create the best performing heavy tank, the best performing medium tank, the best performing tank destroyer, and then pick 4 heavy tanks and 4 medium tanks, 4 tank destroyers, 2 light tanks, 1 SPG, build a team, etc., using the same scoring system as you would do if everything is mixed. I prefer everything to be mixed. As I explained earlier, there are tanks such as the T110, E3, the E4, and the E5, which are different classes, but they're very similar. Another example is the Batchat 25T, and is very similar playing style to light tanks. There's a lot of medium tanks, maybe the T55A or the Type 59 or other examples that are similar in many ways to light tanks. SPGs would be the exception. Not only would this work with the regular matchmaker, but it will work with any number of tanks. It will work with grand battles, it will work with team battles, it will work with random battles. This is the way to make a fair matchmaker where every tank is ranked based on its actual performance, based on its specifications. The current matchmaker doesn't do that. It's a big failure. This algorithm would also be easy to develop. Now, the other issue that comes into play is you've got tanks that have something called preferential matchmaking. Very easy to fix using my system. The way you fix it is you make an adjustment to the score. For example, if a score has preferential matchmaking, let's say it's the IS4, or let's say it's a Scorpion G, you want to give it a score that puts it lower on the list, so it's being matched with easier tanks. So you make an adjustment to the score where you shift it by, for example, 15 points or 10 points, or by a percentage. Probably points would be the way to do it. So if the score is 26, you make the score 36. And then what happens is it's being ranked with another group of tanks. The other way you could do it is to get the average score for stock tanks per tier, tier 10, tier 9, tier 8, tier 7, tier 6, tier 5, and you make an adjustment based on the differences. This is a tier 8 tank, and you've got the average from tier 8 score is 50, and the score from all tier 7s average out to 75. It's a difference of 25. Now you have a number that you can use to make that adjustment in the rank. Because the rank will be affected. For example, if there's a tier that has a lot of tanks in it, then it will affect the ranking system. So that's basically how you do it. You have a fair matchmaker. It's better than the existing system. It solves all the problems, and it's easy to implement, and it can be done now. And it's the obvious solution as in terms of the best performing matchmaker. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.